Today's episode is sponsored by Raul Rodriguez Law.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Leija Lounge. Today we got a very special guest with us today, sports broadcasting legend here in San Antonio. Unless you've been under a rock, you know who this guy is. Mr. Greg Simmons.
Yeah! Thank you.
High fives.
The voice of San Antonio.
The golden voice. The golden voice. First things first, Greg, thank you so much for involving yourself, for being here first, but for involving yourself in our red carpet brawl. That was so much fun. We had such a good time having you there.
I didn't know Jenny Carnes could pack a punch. I didn't know that was impressive to me. I'd never been to one. That was my first. I think it was your second.
Yeah. That was our second one, yes.
Great job. Mark did a fantastic job, obviously. The Leijas as a family were there. Your wife, by the way, never ages. I don't know what the heck, she looks the same she did 20 years ago. Yeah. And it was just a fun event. And I got to meet a lot of great people there. Had some people I hadn't seen in years. Mm-hmm. Mr. Haslocker was there. Good to see him. I hadn't seen him in ages. And I got to meet your ring announcer, who I did not know he did the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson.
Thomas Schreiber.
I had no idea. Yeah.
He's big time, man.
He has a contract now with the Saudis. And
Riyadh season.
Well, because he was telling me his next gig was in, I think, Riyadh, he told me. I went, like, overseas? He goes, oh, yeah. And I went, holy bajolies, good for you, buddy.
Yeah, he's come a long way in that year. We had him last year too, and man, in that year he just blew up. He got some really good fights.
Yeah, he was telling me he one of the things that attracted him, besides the overseas travel, which was fascinating. I don't know how long a plane flight that is, but he was telling me that the crew they work at DAZN is generally from the United Kingdom, which fascinated me. I go, really? Right. It's not American. He goes, no, UK. And he says they're great, they're wonderful to work with. And I said, well, super.
And they pay a lot of money.
And there you go. The money's good. Yeah. You can't argue with that.
And it was great seeing you, man. You did a great job, man. So for those that are wondering, Greg was our Jim Gray. So
there you go. That's a good way to describe it. Yes, Jimmy.
He was our guy inside the ring, interviewing both fighters after the bouts. And because he's got the golden voice at the 11th hour, I'm like, Greg, can you read some of these PA scripts for us?
Sure.
And he did just an amazing job. I had so many people come up to me and say, that's Greg Simmons? Yeah, that's him. Everybody misses you, man.
There was a lot of our fighters that were so surprised to get interviewed by you. That was just like, wow, really? I'm actually getting interviewed by Greg Simmons right now. It was a real deal.
It was really cool. Yeah, it was awesome.
Not only that, but from that Jake Paul fight, the guy who was the referee, Mark Kalloy, he was the ref for that fight for Jake Paul.
Exactly, for Jake Paul, exactly. And I didn't know that until I think the ring announcer young man told me. Yep. I went, He was the referee for that. He goes, oh yeah, well let's talk to him. Let's go. Yeah, it was great.
Just to give y'all some little insight on the production of what we're doing. You know what I mean?
That's how big we are.
That's how big we are.
That's how big this thing is, people.
Get up. Yeah. I'm just impressed it's not in somebody's basement. This is like a real studio, real chairs, very nice microphones.
They look like the real mics, but
no, this is nice. I always laugh. At the station, we had this, I don't know why they thought this was a good idea, but we had these old telephone booths from England. You've seen them. Everybody recognizes them. They're the red things, right, with the glass on it. They wanted to make that an audio booth. I go, okay, first of all, fellas, you realize an audio booth has to be soundproof. So it's all made of glass and wood. How is that going to be sound? Oh, we'll make it soundproof. Yeah, okay, unless you're going to knock out the glass. So they sort of made it soundproof, but then you had to fit into the thing. Yeah. And no offense, I gained a little weight over the years, and now I'm trying to squeeze into this phone booth that's now a converted audio booth. It was terrible. And the microphone we used was, they actually went out and bought a pretty nice mic, but it doesn't really matter what kind of mic you have when the audio booth is like echoing, like you're in an echo chamber.
Well, these mics are actually pretty good.
These are great.
We got these. Dean found them, or James found them on Temu.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. I get an advertisement for something on Temu every day on X. So
That's funny. Shout out to TXI Studios for helping us out here with the production.
thank you guys.
Great
TX,
job.
TXI.
Greg, first things first. How much of the Spurs season are you keeping up with? You know what I mean?
Oh, I
Like
keep
how-
up with them a lot.
Yeah.
I really do. Yeah, I'm a Spurs fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like anybody else, I like the team to do well. I want them to do well. I'm sad that obviously Wemby's sidelined. I'm just glad their medical team found it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if that had gone on for a length of time and not known that he had blood clots and what would have happened after that?
For sure.
I mean, especially where it's located. What is his right shoulder?
Right shoulder,
So how close to the brain and the heart is that? You know,
Yeah.
pretty darn close.
Yeah.
So for him to complain, I'm a little winded, and he's what, a baby,
Yes.
by NBA standards. And how can you be winded? I mean, although he is 7'3", 7'4", depending on who you talk to, still for the young guy to be winded, not feeling well, and they investigated after the All-Star break and find that, boy, what a blessing that is to discover that now.
Definitely.
And they
Yes.
can treat him, shutting down, getting used to the medication, make sure it doesn't come back. You don't want a recurring problem down
Definitely.
the line. So yes, I do keep up, to answer your question. I'm a big fan. I'm a Stefan Castle fan now. Obviously, I've always been a Keldon Johnson fan. I love his enthusiasm. Devin Vassell as well. I mean, I like the team. I like young teams. When I was doing Spurs games back in the day, we had a lot of what we call just rotating lineups because everybody was hurt. So you get to meet a lot of the young guys coming in. Some stayed, some left, some went on. You'd run into them later on. I'm a huge Spurs fan, and I'm a huge Cowboys fan, a huge Texans fan. I'm a big high school football fan.
You're a sports fan.
Yeah,
I wonder
basically.
why is that why you did sports?
Yeah. It's funny. People have asked me before, when did you know you wanted to do sports? And I go, well, that's easy. I was 11. And they go, 11 years old? I go, yeah, I'm a freak. And I remember looking out my window, I saw a red bird sitting on a fir tree. Again, I have no idea what this means. And I remember walking in and telling my parents, yeah, I'm going to be a sportscaster. Wow. And I think they went, yeah, okay, that's nice. Yeah, move on. Wow. Or they recoiled, realizing I'm going to live with them until I was like 53. You're going to what?
That's it's funny because sometimes people just know when they're young. Like
I just
sometimes
knew.
they just
I was a baseball freak. I liked playing baseball. I grew up on the west side over by St. Mary's University, a street called Marquette.
Oh yeah.
And I just loved playing baseball. And there was a field, I joined the Y, and there was a field called Madison Field over off of Bandera and West Woodlawn that I played at. And the lady there, Mrs. Marty, one time asked me, hey, do you want to do announcing when you're not playing? Sure. Sign me up. So that's where I started. I started at Madison Field announcing games I wasn't playing. I was a catcher. So I always thought I'd be
so
amazing.
you had the voice.
You had this voice since
I had when I was
At 10 years old.
I turned when I was a little after 11. It changed, which is a weird age for your voice to change, but it did, and so that's why all this stuff started popping up then.
That's cool.
And so she gave me my first start.
So there's a lot of history, San Antonio history, right here sitting.
Oh, absolutely,
sitting with us right now.
Absolutely.
And I'm curious, what's the relationship between y'all two? I mean, I know y'all go way back.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I was still a minnow, but I'm curious on how
Do you remember?
Yeah,
Do you
I
remember?
do. I
you
remember
really?
going to the
the
KSAT
fights?
all the time.
Oh,
No,
do you? And
going to the
KSAT as well?
station,
Good,
going to the
good,
station,
good.
seeing you,
Well,
David Sears.
I'm sure you well know your father's a big star in the city.
Well, I mean, growing up, I didn't realize.
Well,
it was
and
He's just
kid-
dad.
And kids never do.
he's
Kids-
dragging- he's
Kids,
just
he's just dad.
Yeah, he's
You know,
dragging me
dad.
into
Oh,
the
he happens to
station.
box for a career. That's nice.
Yeah.
It's like you read where children of famous movie stars and stuff. They don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, this
that's
guy's
his dad.
making me eat my broccoli. You like
Yeah,
this
it's
guy?
like, hey, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to go to school? Why do I have to go to practice? What?
So just me.
I would tell my kids. I'm sorry, Daniel. I would tell my kids, you gotta do, you gotta run, you gotta do this. They go, what do you know, Dad?
Yeah, what do you know?
What do you know
How do
about
you
it?
know this?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just a world champion. Don't worry about me. And the other thing, because I've known your dad for so long, this is a true story. I don't know if he remembers this, but we were doing a promotion. I don't even remember what it was for. We're in front of the Alamo, and we're in a ring, and we're just basically messing around. We're boxing. We're doing something. your dad hits me with an uppercut. And by the way, it wasn't that hard. It really wasn't. I saw stars. And I remember my knees buckled. I looked at him and go, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm totally done. I'm out. I literally, he goes, why? Because I'm going to have enough energy just to get out of this ring without falling down and embarrassing myself now.
That's funny.
But yeah, so we've known each other a few years.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know because, I mean, from what I can remember, early 90s, you had David Robinson.
Sure, yeah.
You know, this is before Tim Duncan. So, I mean, I know my dad was probably one of the big athletes here in town.
Huge.
That people
Huge.
you know, gathered around and wanted to hold on to.
Yep.
What was that energy like in San Antonio during that time?
Well, I hope people realize what a big boxing community San Antonio is
Definitely.
and has been and really was. I mean, San Fernando Gym, all that. I mean, there are people that came through this city. People don't realize Pernell Whitaker, Mike Tyson trained here. I mean, a lot of people with big names came through this city in boxing and as a huge boxing community, and people loved it. And I mean, even Golden Gloves is so popular back in the day. And is that back? Is Golden Gloves back in San Antonio?
It's here. It's just it has a different identity to it.
I don't like. And by the way, I apologize to whoever's in charge of that when I say this. I like the old way.
Definitely.
I was a big fan of it. I even loved it when they moved it to Woodlawn Gym
Yeah.
because
That
I thought
was
that
cool.
was its home.
It's a great place.
That was the perfect place for it. I thought because a lot of the boxers obviously come from the West Side, you know, and this was a center of activity, and they fixed it up too. I mean, Woodlawn Gym was really nice. They really did a great job of fixing that area up, and then all of a sudden it just went away. I mean, where did it go? I mean, I thought that was a great avenue for young boxers to kind of get their feet wet.
A little bit of insight for that, just because you brought it up. A little bit of insight. We actually had gotten approached for the Golden Gloves to take it over.
Please.
Many years ago. It was many years ago. We had gotten approached to take it over, and at that time we were doing our Leija Batal promotions. We had
Right.
brought Canelo. We
Sure.
had done all this stuff.
Yep,
We didn't have the room
time.
or the time to do that amateur boxing stuff, and it ended up going to Austin. So that
that-
San Antonio Golden Gloves went to Austin.
And is Austin a bigger boxing community?
Not
than
at
San
all. Not
Antonio?
at all.
I don't think so.
For some reason over there. And they come back though.
They have.
come back here, and I just think, you know, and whatever it is, and I'm going to say it because I feel it, and I think it's right. Is that the people putting it on? I can't say all the people. Some of the people putting it on, some have the wrong intentions. I think the intention now is to make the most money out of it.
No, we can't do it
Not
that way.
putting the kids first.
Exactly.
And
that's what it's all about.
I don't care who tells me, you know what? I'll tell them this is what it is. I believe that they're putting the money first, money over everything, and leaving the kids. It's not for the kids. It's for the money, and I don't like it.
And I think it's a good way. You know, goodness knows there's so many distractions children have to grow up with nowadays, and
you're right.
obviously some of it not good. And I think boxing is a good avenue to distract you, to get you out of the possible element that you could be getting yourself involved in into something good. And I think it builds character. I think it builds, well, it certainly takes care of your body. I don't know if anybody is, I mean, obviously y'all have, but I don't know anybody watching understands how tough boxing is. It's not easy. And I mean, the endurance factor alone, I never knew how your dad was able to train so much, and then get in the ring. To me, I'd be dead from training. I don't know how you just got in the ring for the fight because the training was so rigorous and so, to me, body draining. And then all of a sudden now you got to make weight. After you make weight, then you load up, and now you're going to go fight on top of it all.
You got a 36-minute fight.
Yes, and people don't realize they listen to that and they go like, it's only no. And I know the people that participated in your gala will attest to this.
Yes.
Those were 1 minute rounds in some cases.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of those people were spent by the end of the 3 rounds of 1 minute rounds.
That's right.
And could barely
And
move.
they had trained for a while.
And it trained.
Yeah, right.
So you can imagine what it's like, you know, to have to go through as many rounds you had to go through and sustain that. And you had the best cut man, obviously, in the business too, you know, and people don't know how important that is. So I just, all these factors, I've just never understood why it went away because you had so many great boxing gyms in San Antonio that's what it attracted. That's why the kids went there to get ready for the Golden Gloves. And so I hope they bring it back.
I mean, in the future, I think we would be good with our hands on it. just
Yeah, well,
in the future, like
it's a boxing family. Yes,
exactly.
you would take care of it. Yes.
Exactly, definitely. We would know the history of it. We know how important it is.
Anybody watching and you want to bring it back?
Yeah.
Give them a call.
For sure. And when and to your point, we always say like the weekend warriors that are always saying, "Well, I'll go fight Mike Tyson."
Yeah,
whatever.
buddy, go with that.
Like, it was like he said in the earlier podcast, you wouldn't because you wouldn't get past training camp. There's no way.
You couldn't live past it. I always tell people, and you can look at it. I think Michael Jordan probably said it the best. I mean, here's a guy who made it look easy, but it wasn't. Anybody can be good one game. Anybody can be good one show. Anybody can be good. The secret to being a talented, whatever it is you are, is being consistently good every night, every day,
That's the
every
key, is
event.
consistency, right?
It's hard to do. Hard to do.
Yeah, that is.
So we see this all the time. We see a lot of athletes. They're great or good at
Flash.
certain times, but
Yep.
it's
It's that day where like NBA. It's that day you have to make that long flight to Charlotte, and it's on a Tuesday, and you're there, and how much energy you're going to put in. The great ones, they go all out.
Yeah, I have a little problem right now, and maybe it's just my old school because I grew up when we all flew commercial. We all had to deal with the flight delays. We all had to sleep in the airport. Sometimes we didn't get to the city until maybe 2 hours before the game. Got it. I did football for the San Antonio Charles where they didn't have enough money for a hotel, so we would drive up on an old school bus to the event, and usually it was in Shreveport, Louisiana. So we'd go from San Antonio to Shreveport. We get off the bus. I mean, your legs are just jello. And I wasn't playing. I was just broadcasting the game, right? Yeah. So we do the game, and then, of course, didn't have enough room for the hotel. So you go in the locker room, and there'd be a big box of nothing but either Popeyes or Church's Fried Chicken. That was your post-game meal.
Wow.
And then you got back on the bus and drove all the way back to San Antonio.
There was an ice bath just for you in the locker room.
Pretty much, I was looking for it, but it wasn't available to the broadcaster. So I would sleep in the luggage rack on the way back. Wow. And I would laugh when people say now, about, I have to play this many games and so, whatever. You're on a flight, a charter flight. You're going to stay in a 5-star hotel. It's really not that difficult.
There was load management for the broadcasters.
I love the load management. That's my favorite line.
Load management.
Load management.
Right.
When did that happen?
People say that started with Pop. With Pop.
I believe it did. Yeah. The most famous, obviously, incident was when he was going to arrest Manu, Tony, Tim, and a couple other guys
on a national game.
On a national game, I think it was Miami. It was the end of a road trip before I think the playoffs were about to start, and he sent everybody home, and the Spurs got fined $250,000. The network went berserk because I think it was TNT. It was a national game for TNT. David Stern was the commissioner then. He fined, you can't do that. You can't send the Stars home. Yeah, it's a difficult line to travel because, you want to keep the team together. You want to get ready for the playoffs. You have a nationally televised game. You get in that load management where people are paying all this money to go see a team, and then the Stars are not playing because it's a load management night. You're like, really?
Yeah.
I paid all this money to see, and oftentimes it's an East Coast team. That's their only visit to San Antonio.
Yeah.
But I wanted to watch them.
Yeah.
I think Pop started that word load management, but I think other teams were doing it and Pop wasn't liking it. It's from what I remember.
Sure.
Other teams had done it,
Right.
with Jordan or whoever.
Sure.
And they just didn't say it, but then
Yeah,
when
they didn't
Pop
name
did
it.
it, he
Yeah,
named-
they
he
didn't
named
name
it.
I remember it being a little bit of like a like a rebellious thing that he
Yeah.
was doing.
Yeah.
From like
Sure.
Here you go. I'm going to do it too.
Sure.
Like that.
Well, we all know Pop. He didn't care what other people thought. I'm going to
Exactly.
do it, and I'm doing it because I feel that's what's best for my player. And he did it with obviously Kawhi, and Kawhi's been doing it ever since. With everybody else.
Yeah.
And then they finally had to, because of Kawhi, they came up. Well, you have to play at least this many games to be eligible for the awards.
That's
I
right.
think it's 65 now.
Yeah, I believe
you have
so.
to play 65 games,
That's
right?
a lot of games.
So yeah, I'm a big. It's funny you should bring that up. And you mentioned Pop. I hope that Pop is taking this time to take care of himself. I know he puts everybody else first, and this is a tough time. I think when it happened, I said to somebody, "There's no such thing as a minor stroke."
Yeah.
Just not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be strokes, obviously, are more debilitating than others, but I just don't think there's any such thing as a minor stroke. I hope he takes his time to take care of himself. If he wants to come back into coaching, I'm all in favor of it for him. I just don't know if it's the right thing physically for him to do right now, and it's a decision he's going to have to make. I think he can still be an impact on the team, regardless if he coaches the team or not. It's just gotten tougher to do it, to travel, the pressure that's on you now.
I mean, we saw that impact when we just heard about that little meeting they had, right? And right before their two back-to-back games.
When he met with the team, right?
And man, that team came out just
It was a different
guns
team.
blazing.
That was a different team that showed up against
Sure
OKC.
did. Sure did, and very inspirational, But in again, whatever, Pop has nothing to prove. Obviously, he's had 5 championships under his belt. He wants to be part of Wemby's growth and maturation. So I understand why he wants to do it, but I just hope he spends his time taking care of himself and then not making any decisions until much later.
I'd love to know your answer to this. If Pop doesn't come back, who do you want to see in that chair?
That's a very
hard
tough
one.
question. I mean, I have a favorite. I don't know if he'd consider it, but my favorite is Steve Kerr. I've always been a Steve Kerr fan.
So is that because of the Spurs tree, or just because of his? I mean, I'm
Both.
sure.
I mean, the tree has a lot to do with it, sure. But I've always just been fascinated how he handled. One of the toughest things to do as a coach in the NBA is how you handle the different personalities. It's tough because you just got so many superstars and egos and everything else playing. There's only so much playing time.
Right.
So it's a tough job as a coach because so I thought Phil Jackson did such a good job. Just tough to do with the Lakers and the Bulls, and that's the tough management to go. So that would be my favorite. Do I have others? I mean, I'm a big Brett Brown fan. He helped rebuild the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, I think other people we could bring. Quinn Snyder is a name that pops in my brain when I see this the possibility. But my all-time favorite would be Steve Kerr.
I don't know if you witnessed or if you saw the on Netflix Court of Gold. I think it's called Court of Gold with USA basketball team during the Olympics this past season.
My wife's been watching that.
And it's great. But there's a scene of Steve Kerr just talking to Anthony Edwards.
Interesting.
And his approach to him, opposed to all the different players, was something that stood out to everybody that was viewing it. And just the conversation what he was trying to tell him was, there's a level that you haven't reached yet. Like, when are you going to use that body to start rebounding, to start feeding everyone else?
Right.
But the way he just taught him by just conversation rather than being a little bit more demonstrative.
Right. You wasn't Bobby Knight out.
I think there was no chairs thrown.
or the bench.
Yeah, there was no chairs thrown during that scene. But no, it was a testament to his coaching style, and I think it'll mold perfectly.
I think that's what attracts me. And Steve is just a good guy. If you've ever been around him for a length of time, he's just a good guy. And I'll never forget, we were in Golden State to do a game, obviously, and I was there, and David Sears was with me, and it must have been the playoffs. And this is back when Steve was having all the problems with his back. He'd had the surgery. The leaking part of his spine that was obviously causing severe headaches and very debilitating. He couldn't even coach. He was so bad. But he was at the game, and he made an effort to come out of his office and say hello to David and I. And I go, Steve, go sit back down. Wow. This is ridiculous. This is very nice of you. Good to see you. This is great. I could just tell on his face he was in pain, but that was very nice of him to come out and say hello. Just a good guy. But that would be, if I had to pick a favorite, somebody goes, do it today, that would be my pick.
Yeah. People are calling for Becky. Yeah.
And you know what? Obviously, another good choice. I like Becky a lot. I like her coaching style. She's just as intense as Pop because she learned from Pop. So I would be a Becky fan too. My first pick would be Steve, but obviously if Becky was in line and was interested in doing it, and that's the other thing you have to ask her. Is that something you want to do? Yeah. You want to put yourself in the middle of that because she's going to be under a tremendous amount of pressure, not just for following Pop, but just for being the first female head coach in the NBA. That she's already plowed that field, so to speak. She's already made that commitment to be the first full-time female assistant, so it would be only natural if she came back and did it. But, that would be something to watch too. Yeah.
The thing about Steve Kerr is, he's the same guy he was when he was playing. Nothing's changed. He coached while he was playing, and I was privileged enough to be able to hang out with him and go have dinner with him and his wife and the other players back in the '90s with all the guys. Right. And he's just the same guy. great guy, just friendly, and just he's one of us. Just he's a guy's guy.
And I think that's always the type of person you want to be around. Is it's the same person that they're in public, on camera, or they're the same off.
Always.
That's the person you want to be around because they're not faking it. You know, they're just being themselves.
I'll just never forget the 03 Dallas, the Dallas game where he just went unconscious.
Well, that was the greatest story because remember the reason prior to that there was a lot of pressure on Pop to play Steve. And Pop was resisting the calls for Steve to get in there because it was the playoffs. And anyway, so that particular game you're talking about, I believe that was a game that Tony had the food poisoning with creme brulee in Dallas, right? So then no choice. He had to play him more that game. And, of course, Steve makes the most of it. He just goes berserk.
Unbelievable.
Does a great
I also
job.
heard that Steve was the one that fed him that cream.
Well, that allegedly. Oh, Tony, here's your creme brulee. You ordered. And, he took off, and obviously it was a turning point of the playoffs. And
unbelievable game.
And that was an interesting sidebar to that. That, I believe, was also the same game where we've just done our live shots, and I hear this sound. I go, what is that sound? And it's the fire alarm going off in American Airlines Center in Dallas. So they evacuate the entire arena before the game, and I'm standing outside with Magic Johnson, who was doing the games then for ABC and ESPN. And he goes, how long does it take to do that? I said, I guess when they go off, we can go back in. I don't know. I've never had a fire alarm interrupt. Although I will say, I say that and I catch myself, I did have the water cannons go off in the Alamo Dome, and we were doing that game on KSAT. That was Dave Barnett and I. And I'll never forget, as soon as the pregame ceremony was over with, we just gone to commercial, and we're just getting ready to come out of commercial. They're counting you down. And I'm looking around and I go, hey, Dave, why is there so much smoke in here? And just as I say that, the water hits us, and it's the mist from the cannon. It wasn't the smoke from the pyrotechnics. And I went, what the heck? And then I realized I see the cannon going on. Oh, my gosh. I never thought in a million years we were going to play that game.
I know.
I thought that's it. We're done for the night. And but
kudos to the Dome staff, man.
It took an hour, and they got us back on the air. I was stunned. But that was so funny. It was one little tiny – so they had these things in the ceiling, the Alamo Dome, and it's a laser thing that senses fire. And what they had done is they'd done a great job of covering up all the sensors, right? And one cover, just one little cover, fell off. Well, the guy that was running fire control wanted to see the opening ceremonies, from what people tell me. And so he had wandered, how far it is from the South Loading Dock all the way to where they play the games, right? So he'd wandered up just to see it. Well, obviously, when the little cap fell off and the pyrotechnics went off, the little water cannon goes, oh, fire! So he starts firing the hose, right? Well, the manual override was way back there, so he had to shut it off. So by that time, how many 12,000 gallons a minute they said or something like that? Wow. But they got it cleaned up.
A lot of water.
Crazy.
That was crazy. And that was, I believe, opening night.
Yeah.
That night, I think we were playing Golden State. I wouldn't swear to that. But see, the thing about when you get older, and I'll tell the young kids here, the problem is you think it was 4 or 5 years ago. It's actually 15 years ago.
It's all the same after
When
a
did
while.
that happen?
But you were talking about earlier, man, the 90s were a fun time in San Antonio for sports. You had the game Spurs playing in the Alamo Dome.
Yep.
Boxing was probably at its all-time height, right? I would think they're big-time fights. We had, the fight that occurred, Pernell Whitaker and Julio Cesar Chavez in the Dome.
Yep, in the Dome.
We had, you had missions baseball, which were a lot of fun. It's still a lot of fun to go to.
Sure.
You had pro hockey.
The iguanas.
The iguanas. Jim Goodman.
Yeah.
I think that I tell him every day
Torchetti.
when we talk, I said, that is your claim to fame there, buddy.
Yeah.
To be able to bring that team in here. What a huge success.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought hockey would have gone over in San Antonio? But the iguanas were like, it's kind of like the everyman's team. It wasn't, a National Hockey League team. it was minor league hockey, but it brought you back memories of Paul Newman and Slapshot.
Yeah, right.
And here these kids are out there, and it's $10 to get in to see a game.
And I think anywhere really you have a cold beer around a sporting
Absolutely.
event, I think you're going to draw some people.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
might draw a crowd.
I mean, that invites. And so, just kind of digressing there a little bit, on the first year of the Iguanas, we had Lester.
Oh yeah,
Lester
Bedford.
Mark was really honest.
Yeah, and so Lester and I were kind of brainstorming, and Jim were brainstorming some ideas, and Lester said, San Antonio knows boxing, so we need to make a spot that shows the toughness of hockey and the fights and so forth, the physicalness of the sport. And so he says, you know what, this is a long shot, but I'm going to reach out. So he reached out to Michael Buffer.
Oh,
And that's
good
when we
idea.
had Michael Buffer, he came in, and he was a big part of our initial campaign, man. He did the let's get ready for the reptile rumble.
Nice.
And, and
Good
so
job.
he was there
Yeah.
for our home opener, and Jim encouraged one of the players to kind of start a fight.
Throw down. Throw down.
And that happened, and from then on out, the crowd just bit into it, and they loved hockey. And
There's
it
a
was
couple of those Iguanas jerseys walking around.
you
you'll
still
I
see-
have a
you'll see
hat.
some.
I got a hat, and I have a Dragons jersey. I don't think I
Dragons.
ever got a hold of an Iguanas, but I have an Iguanas hat.
You had the iguanas.
I have
You have
a
jersey?
Iguanas jersey.
Nice. Good job.
Yeah, it wasn't the black ones. It was the white ones. The white ones.
Hey,
Man,
but still, that was
you
the
see a
team.
couple of those every now and then.
People still ask me they always ask about different franchises, but they ask mainly when it comes to hockey, not the Dragons, not the Rampage. That they always ask about the Iguanas. Yeah,
For sure.
That was
They
fun.
had a little something special. That's for
It
sure.
was, and like it says, it was an every man's team.
Yeah.
They wanted to go see the guys who played it for passion, not for money.
Yeah.
When you're in an auto accident, you shouldn't be concerned with legal runarounds, just real advice. You deserve an attorney ready to work for you, an attorney that won't back down.
My parents are from the west side of San Antonio, and they taught me the value of hard work and fighting for what is right.
Raul B. Rodriguez and his team care about ensuring you and your family are represented, whether on the road or in the workplace. Raul is real, and Raul won't back down. Call 210-899-0300 to schedule a free consultation.
But it was a time though too where, like, again, we're just talking about the 90s where, San Antonio had Shaquille O'Neal playing in Orlando. The Magic, they played the Alamo Dome. They
Sure.
packed in the dome,
Sure.
34,000 people.
Sure.
And we were a little concerned that we weren't going to have anybody coming to an Iguanas game, but
Nah.
by golly, we sold it out too, the Coliseum. And so we knew that San Antonio could support both teams on the same night. But, boxing was at its height back then too. Big fights that
Boxing
came
was
through.
huge.
It was a great era, I think, for sports.
See, I also grew up with boxing in Municipal Auditorium.
Yeah, right.
That was so much fun.
Now, what it seems like,
That was
not
so
to
much
change
fun.
subjects too much, but now what it seems like is San Antonio is trying to come back with that, hey, let's put sports at the forefront,
Yes.
right? Because we've lost that a little bit, right, since the championship Spurs years and all that. And we're going into Project Marvel, right? So there's an investment that the city has to make a decision on of, hey, do we go back to this field and maybe make it better, right? There's a certain energy now that we're kind of presented with, hey, there's an investment that the city can actually catch some fire, right? Moving things like, renovating the Alamo Dome, changing that whole area up for sports and entertainment. What do you feel about that? What's your
Well,
opinion on that?
I think it's imperative. I think one thing it has to happen is we have to redirect the center of sports back to downtown. And I think this Project Marvel, not just the Spurs, but also the upgrade of the Alamo Dome, but also the ballpark for the Missions. I think it's essential because remember, back in my younger day, the big influx was military and military bases, and that has now gone away. So now our big attraction is tourism and conventions. So in order to help do that and promote it, we have to get back to the downtown. I was a big fan of the Hemisphere Arena back in the day. I thought that was the perfect venue. The other thing I like, and this is coming from Red McCombs always believed that sports sells the city. And one of the reasons why he was so adamant about bringing the Spurs here from the Dallas Chaparrals was for that reason, to promote San Antonio. I hope the Spurs in the future have I know they have different jerseys now, and they have the black jersey which says Spurs and SA Texas and that. I hope they bring back one that just says San Antonio on it, because again, it's a way to sell the city. I mean, We're kind of the big city, big town, little town.
Yeah.
Syndrome.
What are we, 8th largest city in the United States?
Seventh,
now?
yeah.
Eighth?
But whatever. Again, you wouldn't know it. People don't. Drives me insane when people go, yeah, San Antonio, Texas. Do you have to say Texas? Can't you just say San Antonio? Doesn't everybody know it's in Texas?
Yeah, right.
Well, there's one in California. Not as big. Yeah. Come on. Not as big. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm in favor of it. Now we're going to have to work out the funding, how that works out to where everybody's satisfied, where people don't feel like taxpayers feel like they're being fleeced. But at the same time, I think it is there's some public funds we can use that don't directly impact the taxpayer, which is, I know, some out of the state of Texas for sports development. It is a huge project. There's no doubt about it. 1.2 to 1.5 $1 billion.
And those are the early estimates too.
Exactly. I always laugh when people say, "Well, that's pretty high." I go, "Well, we haven't even started.
Right.
And that's just the initial, estimates." But it includes building a sky bridge over I-37 to the Dome. It includes also redeveloping certain areas around in the Institute of Texan Cultures, Judge John Wood Theater, all that. Courthouse, I should say, used to be the theater for Hemisphere back in the day. I'm just a big fan of it. I think it can help. Again, I think the Spurs do a good job of selling the city, having 5 championships under our belt. I mean, you think about the world of the NBA right now centered on San Antonio because of Wembanyama.
Yep.
I mean, this guy is an international star,
Right.
and now he's in San Antonio, and we got to figure out a way to keep him here.
Yep.
So that's why it's important to sign people around him. Having that new arena, whenever it gets, I think some estimates said, 2032 was one of the estimates I heard.
Between 30 and 32.
Wow.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Which is really that's
It's
tomorrow.
not that far away.
That's tomorrow.
That's 5 years, 5 to 6. But so think about this. Remember when we had the Spurs downtown?
Yep.
And after every game, how the city was just crazy after the games.
Yep.
I mean, everybody was at Champions and
Yep.
all the sports bars around San Antonio.
Remember the Lone Star Pavilion across?
Yeah.
that was fun when you run over there with the baseline bums.
Yeah,
and
it was just-
Ice would be over there. Different people from different segments.
I tell people, we would be at Champions hanging out. Charles Barkley's with us. just
Absolutely.
hanging out.
He had no problem with that.
Every
Nope.
game he was just there, and people would walk up to him and he'd say hi, and
Yep.
they got so used to it they won't even say anything to him.
But
They got
there
used
is
to
a
being
lot of
there.
energy to that.
Yeah,
to
it was
downtown.
just great.
And there's a reason why the NCAA, if you were to poll, you were a big part of this, if you were to poll the media that follow NCAA, and you were to poll them, and they have, what top 3-4 cities would you like to have Final Four? San Antonio,
Yep.
New Orleans,
Right.
Indianapolis.
Right.
They all have the same thing in common. Venue,
Right.
hotel rooms, entertainment district, restaurant, it's all walking
And
distance.
accessibility. That's
Yeah.
the thing. People don't realize, for somebody that's traveled to a lot of stadiums in my career, there's a lot of stadiums that are not easy to get to anymore. And it's a struggle. I want to tell you, one of my all-time favorites back in the old LA Sports Arena days, right? So I did a game with the Clippers. That's where the Clippers played. And I came out. I was trying to catch a red-eye back to San Antonio. So I obviously had to get a cab to get to the LAX to get on the plane. So I'm wearing a trench coat. I'm carrying a little briefcase. I've done my game with the Clippers. I'm walking out, and I'm trying to hail a cab. Well, probably 10 minutes goes by, and a police car pulls up and goes, "What the heck are you doing?" Just trying to get a cab. Do you realize where you are? Do you realize where the LA Sports Arena is located? I go, no, is it a bad? Yes, get in the car. So he goes, "What are you trying to do?" I go, "I need a cab." He goes, "I'll take you to a hotel."
That's
so he drives me to the hotel so I could hail the cab.
I thought
to-
you said you're going to have a police escort to the
No,
to the
I wish you would.
LAX.
No, I never got the lights
yeah.
or the siren. No, I just got kept from being, I guess, murdered that day.
Right.
But so I think it's important that we support.
And see those
venues like
experiences, like guys, our generation, we don't have that, right? We have, SBC, AT&T, Frost Bank Center, and where do you go after that?
Right.
We're all going somewhere else, or there isn't anything
That was
around
the problem because in that time, that era when the Frost Bank Center was constructed, it was kind of nobody wanted it city-wise. It should have been built downtown then. But nobody was willing to bite the bullet on that and push it. It was not popular. then.
Can you imagine that? The championship years downtown?
Oh,
Yep.
man.
It's
Wow.
been crazy. As it was, the county decided to step in, and remember the campaign was Saddles and Spurs, and that was to promote the rodeo and obviously the Spurs and to build the facility next to the Freeman
And
Coliseum.
kudos to them for doing it, man. Because who
They
knows
got it built.
what would have happened to the franchise
Definitely.
had
Exactly.
they not had that arena built. You know,
Congratulations to Peter Holt and all the people that did that because it
But it
kept
was-
the team viable. And here,
It was Cindy Taylor Cryer.
Cindy Taylor Cryer, right. She was the county judge
at the
back
time.
then.
She had this idea at the 11th hour and said, what if we were to build it over here?
Yep.
And
The problem with that, as you were pointing out, it just didn't have any venues around it. So once the game's over, okay. Well,
And they talked about doing that, and the intentions were to build around it.
Sure.
It didn't get to
Yeah,
that.
if there's a championship, right? Which I mean, they've won a few over there, anyways. But in my head, I'm Game 7. Watch 05, right? Pistons.
Sure.
What I imagine myself, if I'm gonna honk anywhere on the highway, I'm honking on Commerce Street.
Sure,
You know what I mean?
sure.
And I'm not going to be honking right out of the parking lot.
No, not at AT&T Parkway.
I got to enjoy it. I got to enjoy it with the people by the Riverwalk, barefoot, Commerce, and let's start honking.
And that was just
we got to go back to that.
That was the fun of the Alamo Dome is you get out of the game and you see the traffic.
Oh, yeah, it's right
That's
there in front of you. Yeah,
right
can't
there.
miss it.
Yeah, you
Let's
want to
park-
get in it.
Park
you
the
know?
car and just go.
It was funny. I'll never forget after the first championship. And by the way, in '99, what's interesting about that championship is it was a strike-shortened season. It was a 50 game, but the playoffs are the same. So all that drama about the Astros from Phil Jackson, forget you. But what's interesting in that particular championship run is we were playing Game 5 that night. It was in New York in Madison Square Garden. None of us thought, and I say none of us meaning media, we didn't think that the Spurs are going to win Game 5. I don't know why. We just didn't. And as the game was playing out, the Knicks were fairly dominant, towards the end, and we were in the fourth quarter. And we were all meandering down from our seats, which were way up in the rafters, coming down to cover the post game. And we thought, we're going to be back here for, obviously the Game 6. And so we just have to prep that and deal with it. Well, as we all emerge, that's when I see Avery hit the baseline jumper that gives them the lead. And at that moment, I didn't know they gave us the lead. I looked up this, wait a minute. We're ahead? And then I look at the time. What? There's seconds left? What? And then you see Latrell Sprewell dribble down, shoot the shot, doesn't go in, and went, whoo, whoo, we just won.
Yeah.
And I remember storming the court, and the first person to grab me was Mike Budenholzer's wife, and she kissed me.
Wow.
And I laughed. I said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "You're the only person face I recognize right now. I'm so happy." I laughed. I said, "Well, let's celebrate."
That's a great story.
That's
This
why
is
we.
great.
That's why we talked to Sean Elliott. We were fortunate enough to have him, and he said the only
Sean's the best.
So the only regret was that he wishes that he would just celebrate it here.
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah,
have
for
the
that
Game
particular-
6, to
yeah,
have the
yeah.
Game 6 and have it here with the people. So
Well, because what's interesting about that, it's funny because obviously everybody's going berserk there, and we're all happy. But what we don't know is back home, it's going crazy berserk, right?
Yeah.
And they shut down, 37, 281 South, right?
Yeah.
Where they turn into a parking lot, people are getting out. I remember Avery standing next to me, and they're saying in my ear, "You're not going to believe this, but 281, 937 is a parking lot, McAllister." And I go, "What?" And so I tell Avery, I go, "Avery, you're not going to believe this." And so on the air, he's commenting to that. We're showing the
that's
the
right.
people
Yeah,
getting
the
out of the
helicopter
cars.
flying up
Right.
there,
And we're
camera.
just laughing. We're going like,
Yeah.
this is nuts. And like you say, God, I wish we were there,
Right,
to
exactly.
be able to see this in person,
I was at Champs off I-10, and I was working with the company at the time. They got hired to put up a big old screen, and we were showing. It was a big, party.
Sure.
And I mean, that place was packed. There was probably 2,500 people there, 3,000 people at Champs, and people going nuts after we won, and people just start talking. What do we do? Nobody knew what to do. Somebody says,
Now what?
We should go
okay, we won. Now
downtown."
how do we celebrate?
Yeah, we should go downtown.
Yeah,
And that was the
that's
thing.
my favorite part. Let's go downtown.
Everybody wanted to go downtown
and
for
drive the
whatever
circuit.
reason.
Drive the circuit and honk.
Yeah, it's like all of San Antonio decided that's what they wanted. That's what shut down the highway. Literally
Did that just
shut it
happen
down.
last week? The Spurs won, and someone said, "Let's go downtown."
yeah,
It
they
was
finally
time.
won. So let's do
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Let's
that's
celebrate.
Everybody
Yeah,
downtown, let's
let's
go.
celebrate.
Woo!
And the tourists that are down there are like, what's going on?
What's
here,
wrong
man?"
with you people?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
Why are you
Yeah,
celebrating?
This is our ticker tape.
Wouldn't it be
parade.
kind of fun if for whatever reason, someday Wembayama was able to say, and we have him running around downtown on
Oh, yeah.
Market and Power Street.
Oh, my
That would be
gosh.
hilarious.
You know what? I think he has the personality to do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. Yeah.
I think he could pull it off. I'd like to see him in somebody's hatchback or sunroof, waving at everybody.
A small car.
Right,
Like
small,
a small
car.
car. Yeah.
Like something you see in France.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
And plus, in the parade that we had for the championship was just crazy.
Nuts.
Down
That
the
was
Riverwalk.
Special.
Yeah, the
was-
River Parade,
yeah.
then the Alamo Dome celebration.
That
Yeah,
was
all
so-
that was just
so much
nuts.
fun.
That was great.
Yeah, and then people came out to fill up the dome for that too.
Oh, it's nuts. Because, the average person, let's be blunt, can't really afford, to be an everyday fan inside the arena because of the ticket prices. So when you have that opportunity in someplace like the Alamo Dome, where you can share in that celebration with the average fan, they're going to pack it. And rightfully so, they should, because it's their team.
Yep.
And to see that crowd there that night, especially after the first one, it's just nuts.
Oh, man.
I mean, it didn't get old. Don't get me wrong. 2014 was just as much fun to celebrate.
right.
But I'll tell you a great story about 2013. So we're in Miami, and we're going to win this game. This is we're going to do it, and they're pulling up the yellow ropes. The Larry O'Brien Trophy is literally right next to me in this tunnel. We're getting ready to walk out, and David Sears is standing to my left. I go, go take your coat off. Why? Because champagne's going to stain that. You don't go take it off.
Jeez.
And he goes, okay. So he goes away. He comes back. Just as he comes back, Ray Allen hits that three-pointer. Seriously, you haven't hit a three-pointer all night, and this is the time with 29.5 seconds left. You're going to hit the stupid three-pointer. And, of course, we lost that game.
That was a painful moment. I've still, to this day, if that highlight ever pops up, I'm muting it. I'm turning it off. I haven't seen that shot since we were in the arena for the watch party.
But look how difficult it was to have to absorb that fact that you were that close to winning the championship in Miami in 2000 on their floor, right? You're that close. You wind up losing, what is it, in 7 games, right?
Right.
Turn around the following year, not 3 or 4 years down the line. The following year, you get yourself back, and this time you win it in 5.
That's the argument.
That's crazy.
The argument is if Spurs won 2013, do they win 2014?
I don't know. Do they have the
drive?
Do you have the drive?
Yeah.
They literally had the drive after losing it, being that close.
That's
So
what
they had the
said.
drive
Pop-
to get back.
Pop, the first day of training camp, Pop sat everyone down and he made everyone watch the game again.
Right.
I think that's all they needed.
And then that's the last time they spoke about it. I remember he told them that. That's it. We won't speak of it again. That's it. We're done. Now we're going to go out and
They came
get
back determined to that. And I remember that game there. I mean, Tim just was so frustrated, slams his hand, his palm on the court. Like, come on, man.
Yep.
Can't
Had it.
believe it.
And they played a great Game 7. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't a blowout.
It was all good. One of the things that we were required to do is the game was from our time local was from 7 to 8, right? So the game tipped off 8 San Antonio time, no matter where it's played, San Antonio or Miami, but we're not allowed on the floor past 7:30 local time, right? So in order to continue our live program, we had to have another perch in which to do it. Couldn't be inside the American Airlines Arena live. So we rented a place across the street in this condominium that's being altered, constructed. Completely tricked out, but it's all under construction. So we had 2.5 minutes to run from the court side out this side door across Biscayne Boulevard, bang on the door till the security guard opens it, and then take an elevator up to like the 6th or 7th floor, run out on the balcony and finish the show. And I just remember, I hope this was worth all this. And we did it back-to-back years. So I go, I guess it was worth it. We got a championship out of it. That's awesome.
Cool, man. Those are great stories.
Yeah, those are fun.
One thing I wanted to ask about, it seems like the biggest fumble that would come out of Dallas should have been with the Cowboys, but it seems like it's with the Mavericks right now.
There's huge.
It's a big one.
As soon as you'll like this story. As soon as the trade happened, I went, "What do they know we don't know?"
Exactly.
It's the first thing I said. Yeah. What do they know we don't? Because there's no other reason to make this trade.
Right.
Why would this be even on your radar? To dump him to, the first conspiracy theory I saw was the NBA ordered it to make the Lakers better, And I go like, no, I don't think so. No, this is kind of really way out of the blue. Right. I mean, why would this happen? friend of mine's an anchor lady in Los Angeles. She called me. Should we lead with this? I go, absolutely, absolutely. This is so far removed from anything that anybody expected.
Is it true that they thought that Luka was that something was with him, that he's gonna get injured later on in the season?
They
Just
thought
the way
his
he played?
conditioning was poor. They thought there's talks about him smoking this particular stuff.
Hookah Doncic.
There you go.
Hookah Doncic.
and also beer. But I mean, again, the guy was still playing pretty well.
He was still a leading scorer in the NBA.
He's
so.
pretty well. I mean, I guess they were looking at down.
MVP quality guy. I mean,
I obviously there was some friction between him and Nico Harrison. Obviously, I mean, for the head coach to say he had no idea what was going to happen, I thought that was bizarre, didn't you?
Yeah.
How does the head coach not have an input on treating his best player? You know, and now the wheels have come off. I mean, he goes to L.A. He's helping the Lakers win. A life after LeBron, they're calling it. And then all of a sudden, Dallas is now, first they lose Kyrie Irving for the rest of the season with a blown ACL. And now the agent for Anthony Davis says, well, if you're losing Kyrie and we don't have Nico, well, might as well just shut down Anthony Davis for the rest of the season too. So people are walking out. I saw on X last night, saw people walking out of the Mavs game in the third quarter.
And they raised ticket prices.
And they raised ticket prices, yes.
As a
Pay
Spurs
more to
fan,
see less.
as a Spurs fan, I mean, obviously, don't want to see anyone get hurt.
Sure.
I don't mind seeing Dallas lose.
Said the I-35 rivalry.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yeah.
I know.
Yeah, and no, I mean, obviously there's no love lost between Mavs fans and Spurs fans, but it is bizarre that you would trade away that guy for what you got in return. It's saying that you needed to beef up your defense. That was the excuse.
That's like saying get rid of Wemby right now or in 2 years, right? That's that same type of.
And you got to give Brian Wright credit for being able to grab a guy like De'Aaron Fox and not give up any of those.
That is
picks for
the
him.
way they did that.
That was the theft. He should be arrested for theft. I mean, that was unbelievably well done.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that obviously Wemby, had his medical condition pop up, and that could have easily gotten the Spurs in the playoffs, no question about it. But it continues to build on the future because if you're Wembanyama, the one thing you want to see is that they're building the team up around you, and
that's what I had seen. I had said is that Wemby being out, everyone's forced to play, and they're all playing great right now.
Yep.
Wemby comes back, they're going to be playing great with Wemby.
Yep, that's
With
what
that
we're all hoping.
confidence,
Yep, that's
we were talking earlier about Pop, and I just wanted to comment, going back to that a little bit, is that I have complete faith in RC, Pop, Brian Wright, that group to make the right decision on who is it's all up to Pop, right? At the end of the day,
Absolutely.
for him to decide what he wants to do,
right?
And if the decision for him is I'm still going to remain president of basketball operations.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Thank you. And now it's who's to step in there. I have no doubt in my mind they're going to make the right call.
I mean, we're making great progress now. We only won 19 games last year, and this year, man, we're hot. I mean, not on a winning streak, but we're way ahead of that.
If there's any advice I can give Pop, and there's not much I can give him because obviously he's a much more seasoned person than I am. I never thought I would like semi-retirement.
Yeah.
I thought I would go crazy because I was working 7 days a week, 10, 15 hours at a Pop. I enjoyed what I do. In fact, Pop said something to me one time before the season started. We were at Media Day, and he came over and said vacation's overrated, meaning he loved what he did so much.
Yeah.
Vacation was working. That was the fun part. He was looking forward to getting back in and doing it. And I agree with that. That's the way I lived. Yeah. But I will say, for a guy who didn't think he liked retiring or semi-retirement, I have enjoyed it tremendously.
Yeah.
I really have. I've gotten to do things I normally wouldn't get to do. I've gotten to meet and talk to people I normally wouldn't get that chance to do. And I hope Pop embraces that when it's time, when he feels it's time. But I guarantee you, Pop, if you're listening, you will love it.
Yeah.
You will love it.
Yeah.
We
were at the we've been training the Spurs for 20
Absolutely,
years.
you have. Yep.
We trained during the season. Pop was at the gym while we were there, and I said, "Pop, I'm surprised you're going to do this another year." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Well, you've been doing it for so long." He goes, "Well, why are you still here? Why are you still being part of the boxing?"
Because you love it.
That's what I do. He goes,
Yeah.
"Exactly."
Yeah.
because I love it.
Yep.
Because I want to be involved with it.
And it keeps you young too,
Yeah.
because you're around obviously much younger people. As the NBA, you don't get older, you get younger with the talent. So yeah, it does keep you younger, and that's the reason I like working, because I would learn things from the kids that I work with that I never thought.
Yeah.
Oh, you can do that. Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Even the things you were telling us before we started here, with just the change in the media game, the change in the TV game, all that. That's just stuff that
it is. And a lot of executives don't get it. They don't understand. You have to do both together. You have to keep linear TV, and you have to also develop digitally. They think that you have to throw out the baby with the bathwater, and you don't have to do that. They want to get rid of linear TV. They want to get rid of this. No, you don't get rid of it. You marry it with the digital, with however you want to deal with it, but it's just a different audience. You can't take the same thing you're doing on television, and I don't care who you are, CBS Evening News, KSAT, Spurs, anything. You can't take exactly that same product and make that as a social media platform. You have to change it. You have to get more young minds, more kids involved in TikTok and all that other type of Instagram. They have to be your producers now. They have to be your talent. They have to decide what those viewers want to see. You can put if you're the Spurs, maybe you put it on YouTube. If you're CBS Evening News, you do the regular newscast, but you have somebody else do your streaming newscast, to make it more lively and more attractive to a younger demographic, right? That's what executives don't get now. They want to trash the linear TV. They want to get rid of it. They want to downsize it. They want to get rid of people. They don't want to. They don't get that part. That it's a marriage. You have to be able to do both well to keep the younger viewer involved and keep your traditional audience as well.
Yeah.
People in San Antonio like television. Now, they like podcasts, too, because they know what they're getting, because they know this is the Leija podcast. They're tuning in because they know they're going to get a good interview and they're going to get something they're interested in, right? Because it's going to be about local sports. Well, that's what you have to sell now on any other venue. You have to sell what you can do best at. We had a great thing at KSAT, live, local, and late breaking, because that's what we did best. We were fast. We were on the scene. We brought you the news. That's what we did well. So those are the things I think management can't lose sight of. You have to still bring that, but at the same time also marry it to the social media platform, but in a different delivery. Don't take the same thing you're doing on television and just move it to social.
Right.
That's not going to do it. You have to think of a different way to present it.
It's a
Change with
good,
the time,
great
right?
advice.
You have to change with the
It's
time.
hard to do. Take it from an old dog, new tricks guy here. It's hard to do. But that's what you realize. It does work. I mean, I pay a lot more attention to social media now than I ever have.
Yeah.
Sure.
And again, part of it is because the attention span. You can get a lot more information in a quicker form.
And there's a lot of entertaining things on social media.
There are. It
I
keeps your
was
attention.
I was late to the game on TikTok, I mean,
Right.
but I started to get, once I got on, I was like, this is pretty cool.
Right.
This
That's
is
just
a lot of
funny.
fun.
It's interesting. Right. Not something that's going to change the world, maybe.
Right.
But
It's entertaining.
But the thing about X I like is it keeps me informed in a very, short, brief type of way to deliver the news. I still want to see it on television. That's the one thing I always tell the people on television is, hey, we got the biggest advantage of everybody. We can show you what happened.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
We can show you.
That's one of those things too where we use in the gym. A lot of our younger guys will bring in TikToks and they'll show us videos of a guy knocking someone down or whatever. And I always say, well, you didn't even see how he set it up.
Right,
Like, you know, there's things you're missing as well.
Right.
You know what I mean?
See the punch, the knockout punch, but you don't see how he worked his
setup.
body first, how he set him up, how he led maybe with his left a couple of times before he threw the right.
Exactly.
You know.
That's
And
like
it's,
a comedian just giving you the punchline.
Right. You're right.
You didn't set it up.
Where's the setup? Yep.
Yeah.
Where's the setup?
What's the, not to interrupt you, what's the consumption, the sports consumption on your end from being, as you're saying, semi-retired now to when you were in the field, you know what I mean? What's the...
Well,
has
probably
it heightened?
worse.
Yeah?
Because I just bought a new television that's 75 inches, so I was watching the other day, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is better than I ever had before in my life. This is the best,
What's that schedule like?
Did you
know,
finally
'cause-
throw out that little 14-inch black and white TV with rabbit ears?
Did you see that?
Yeah, did you throw it out?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, it's a true story. One time I'm doing a live shot, and we were in the Denver locker room. This is back when I think I think Doug Moe was the coach then of Denver. Right, that's how far back it goes. This is Hemisphere Arena. And we had this tiny little black and white TV that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. And this particular event, we were in the Denver locker room after the game. I'm doing a live shot, and it, of course, didn't work. And so Doug was nice enough to do the interview without the highlights. Anyway, we got it done. After it was over with, I sat down, and I was just so frustrated. I looked at the ball boy, and I went, want a TV?
Yeah.
And he goes, why? Why do you ask? He goes, I'm going to mistakenly leave that black and white TV here in the locker room when we leave. Feel free to take it home.
That's funny. That is
He probably still has it.
I hope he changed it in for something better.
Yeah. So what was the schedule like watching all these sports and being on top of late breaking news and all that?
You know what? The thing I didn't like when you were actually doing a daily sports show or going to an event to cover it, you didn't really get to watch the game.
Mm-hmm.
You were too worried about the trends, who was doing what the score, who was scoring the most, all these things in your mind. You're trying to figure out how you're going to tell this story, but you're not really watching the game. I would often go home after doing a game, or at least broadcasting the coverage of the game. I would go home and rewatch the game so I could actually see it. You know, it'd be like you watching a boxing match, because you really didn't get to see it, you know, even though you're in the middle of it, obviously, and doing it.
Oh, you're right. Even when we're like promoting the fights, we're there.
You're there.
We're so
You're
busy
working.
doing that, we don't get to see the fights.
Don't get to see it. So that's what I would do. I would often go home and actually watch the game on television after it was over with. And it wasn't just Spurs. It was the Cowboys. It was back then the Oilers. All of that.
What do you think of the Cowboys now?
That's his favorite team, by the way. It's the Cowboys.
It's the old Russell Maryland with Leon. Leon. You know, and mine is like, Jerry. What are you doing? You know, I just, when I think they've got the team that can do it, when they had, you know, they got Micah in there, they had the offensive line they needed to have. They had Biotish as the center, even though they had the setback with Frederick, you know, with the Bell's palsy, I think it was, or Guillain syndrome. I thought, you know, this is the team that can actually do it. You know, we have all the elements. You have the defense, you have the offense, you have the receivers, you have the running backs, and then it just blows up. You know, first, you know, Dak breaking his ankle. Now Dak with the hamstring, had to have the surgery, and now
he's getting paid.
Now what, 240? Oh my God!
Yes.
They did rework his contract so they could create some cap room, because they're going to need it for several reasons. They're going to need to find a run. They got to get a running back. I mean, there's no question about it. That plagued them all last season.
All right, so you've been in sports forever, and I was going to say something later on. I'll say later on, but you've been in sports forever, and there's guys that are in sports that you've seen and you know, or that you've seen, that cannot just get over that hump, whatever it is. Tony Romo has it. He had it, right?
Had it.
And I think Dak has it as well. They just can't get over there. It's just whatever it is. They're great quarterbacks during the season, whatever it is. And you know this. There's just some guys that just can't get over that championship hump or whatever it is. And as
Well,
fighters,
look at Sam Darnold this year, right?
yeah, there's
I mean, he
fighters
had a great
that
season
are
and all
great
of a sudden
fighters,
big game.
and we call them gym fighters. They're great fighters, but they get into in front of people and they just cannot do it.
You bring up a really good point, because the interesting part about it is, having watched Troy Aikman and watched what a championship quarterback is and how they perform and how they practice. I mean, there's no question Dak practices hard and well, but even at practice, not consistently good.
I think they need more money.
You know what I mean? Not consistent.
Motivate.
I wish I could be. Yeah, I just don't see Dak as a Super Bowl quarterback, and I hope he proves me wrong this year. I hope they go to the Super Bowl, they win it all, and Simmons, you're an idiot. Yeah. And I go, I'd be happy to plead that. Right.
You know when I was a huge Cowboy fan for
Right.
years. When I saw Tony Romo come in was, wow, Tony Romo, he's a Hispanic guy. Everyone loves him. In
Sure.
Texas, right? Hispanic in
Sure.
Texas. And that bobbled snap for the field goal.
Yep. Changed everything, didn't it?
From that point on, he just could never.
Yep.
So, and here's the thing. I heard a interview with Jerry Jones
Sure.
about why he kept Romo is he could never pull off the big win.
Nope.
Right? He's just one of those guys. But why did they keep him? Because he was Hispanic from Texas and he sold tickets.
Well, let's be honest with you. Even a bad Cowboys team makes money. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt
Yeah.
about it. That's the brand that everybody would want to have.
But to have
It's
a
worldwide.
Hispanic quarterback in Texas
Sure.
was huge.
No, it's huge. Remember, they
Cowboys.
practiced here in San Antonio.
Yeah.
I mean, they were part of our culture there for a long time, you know. But you're right, just never good. I mean, can you believe it? They haven't been in the NFC Championship game since '96.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was there.
Yeah.
You know, that's scary how long it's been. You know,
96.
You
Wow.
look back and you
He
go
was
like,
one, right?
that
He
was
was
it. It was 30 years ago. Think about that.
Yeah, no,
That's
that-
crazy.
yeah.
So, to your point about the Cowboys, they have to have a running back. They've got to get an offensive line. I mean, they just had Zach Martin retire, so this line is not as good. They've lost some key elements in this line. They've got to use the draft to help rebuild it. They're going to have to sign some people. They've created cap room to do it, but they got to get a running back. They got to take some pressure off of Dak in the backfield. That's why the running game has to be important. All these things have to happen for them just to be contenders in the NFC East again.
And the number one thing is, I think the coach Jones needs to step away a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, from being around him as many years as that's not going to happen.
Yeah, of course not.
That will happen when the day he passes on.
Yeah.
But it won't happen before
Yeah.
that. He is a hands-on guy,
Yep.
always will be. That's the way it has to. In his mind, that's the way it has to be. And it's just not going to change.
And he said it too. I bought this team for a hobby, and I'm in it.
He's in it, and he's not going to relinquish any control over it whatsoever. That said, it would be difficult for them to get back to a Super Bowl until that happens. I wish it was sooner than later. A good friend of mine, Dale Hansen, who was a star in Dallas for many years, sportscaster up there, he told me he retired. He goes, I just can't wait any longer. I tried. I stuck it out as long as I could, but I just can't wait any longer. I got to retire.
But it's really it's amazing. I mean, they are still a massive draw.
Sure.
Now, arguably, I don't know if they're America's team any longer. Arguably.
It's your fighting words, Mark.
They are. I mean,
We're
but
going home.
you have other teams
Don't
out
go to your
there.
car right after.
You have other teams out there that are really just
Who would you
kinda-
say? Who would you say? Would
Well,
be
I
the-
think Kansas City. I really do think Kansas City. But going back to Dallas, here's what I want to say about it. It's been that long. The fan base is rabid, man.
Crazy
It
good.
doesn't matter, right? They still talk about it. They could be down 3 touchdowns, fourth quarter, and I know Cowboy fans, and I've got some friends that go, and they say, man, if we can just do this, just do that, score here, we're going to win this game.
See, that's why I like training camp so much, because it's all 0-0.
Yeah.
You know, the hope is there. You know, we're all in the same boat. No one's won anything. This could be the year, you know. And I got so used to it, you know, with Jimmy Johnson and the Cowboys of the 90s where we were in Austin. And
St. Edwards.
absolutely, St. Edwards University, and never saw 93 coming.
Wow.
Then it was 94, and then we skip a year, and it's 96. Oh, my gosh. You know, who would have thought that run was going to happen? But yet, when you saw the discipline they had, you saw what, you know, Johnson expected out of his team. And this is back when we had full two-a-days. I'm not saying they've gotten a little soft in the NFL overall, but yeah, maybe
Say
a
it,
little
Greg.
bit.
Say it. Say it. Let them know.
They don't have the same commitment level that teams had back in the 90s. I mean, we're doing two-a-days. You're out on that field at 8 o'clock in the morning. You're back out at 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
And that Texas
Every
heat.
day.
Texas heat. You know.
Yeah, in Austin, where it's just as humid as it is here in San Antonio in the summer. It is hotter than a pistol. Remember the few years we did it in Wichita Falls. I had reporters passing out around me. It was so hot. I mean, seriously, forget the team out on the field. Guys are out there, pardon me, throwing up in the middle of practice. But we have reporters passing out in the heat. It was so hot up there. So, yeah, it's a different level of commitment back then than it is now. I mean, and Jimmy's idea was the reason why I want them practicing the heat because our first few games in Texas Stadium are in September and October. We're still hot in Texas, so I want them to. The trouble was, I think it just their conditioning was so hard that I was telling people I would forget. I was so hot out there one day, I forgot the plays that they were running, and I wasn't doing any plays. I was just watching. That's how hot it was.
At the same time, those guys that played, that practiced in that heat, won championships.
Yes. Yeah, the Moose Johnsons, you know, the Michael Irvins, you know, the guys that really – I'll never forget the last year of Troy's when Barry was the coach. And Barry, by the way, likable guy, one of the most fun guys to be around. Discipline, not his middle name, you know, because, you know, practice. It was Troy that was the guy that if he didn't like something that happened in practice, no, we're not going home. We're running this again till we get it right. It was Troy that was the guy that was demanding of his players to set that same level of intensity and practice that he wanted to see every day. Forget the game. He wanted to see that in practice.
Sounds like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
He demanded that of his teammates, you know, and that's what made him such a great leader. It really was.
That's how it was for Tim Duncan. Seeing him practice, it was no one drank water unless Tim Duncan drank water. Then everyone else can drink.
You guys are around him, you know what his level of commitment was, and he didn't brag about anything. He just did it.
He did it.
You know,
one of the things about that is when we were boxing with him at the gym, and I'm trying to show him a sequence of punches, and he just couldn't get it right. And I said, "It's okay, we'll do something." He goes, "No, let's do it. Let's keep doing it until we get it right."
Till you get it right.
And I was like, "Wow, that was just boxing, right?" And it was his workout, but he said, "No, let's do this right."
That's what made him
And
a great player.
Out of all the years we've been doing that. There's only a few that do that. It's not everybody. You know, like there's only a handful of those guys that actually have that level of like, no, I'm going to get this. You know, and it's weird. Like
I'm going to do it till I get it right.
Yeah. You can definitely see the change in how that they apply that to their sport.
Wemby has it.
Yeah,
Wemby has
one
that.
of those guys too.
What's interesting, the big fear I had about Wemby and the worry that I had was his feet. When you look at his feet, they're so long and narrow. I always worried about him getting down in the middle and getting stepped on by some big fella.
Well, that's why he's not always in the middle.
Well, and that's why
plays
people
more on the
complain about it. I said, okay, I understand. You know, he's 7'3", 4", or whatever you want to argue about. He's got that wingspan of 8 foot, whatever. He belongs down low, rebounding. But I said, kind of half of me is a little happy he plays outside a lot because I don't know if somebody stepped on that foot, he wouldn't be back.
Well, you know, he acknowledges that also, though. He says, I think it was maybe one of the interviews he had done, he mentioned hand-eye coordination and feet. Those are his priorities. And if you see him before the game, he's barefoot on the court doing his little toe exercises and all that.
Drives me insane.
But, you know, in the first his rookie year, there's moments where he rolls his ankle and he pops right back up. You know? And it's gonna happen.
I'm just worried about because of the length of his feet and how not wide they are, they're thin, that somebody steps on them. You know, I always envision like a Shaq guy stepping on them or even this Edie kid that's coming up. He's a big fella. You know,
he's a big
I was
boy.
worried so much that that's going to be a major setback. So part of me, I understand why the fans get upset that he's 7'4" and he's playing outside, but part of me doesn't mind that for that fear.
Yeah,
you know,
he's still what 230, maybe 225.
Yeah, no, he's still a big kid.
No,
but
I'm just saying he's not that big.
No. By
He's just-
comparison,
it's 230, 225.
that's nothing. Being that tall.
No, let him stay here a little bit longer, a little more Taco Cabana tacos. And we'll see what happens after.
A couple of fiestas.
We'll whip
under
him
his
into
belt.
shape.
A little chicken on a stick.
Under his belt.
Yeah, we'll whip him into shape.
Yeah.
So, Greg, somebody who's covered sports, all kinds of sports, what's your take on why San Antonio does not have an NFL franchise?
Jerry?
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. But I want to hear you talk.
Look how many Cowboy fans there are in San Antonio.
Second most season ticket holder base outside of Dallas is here in San Antonio.
Yeah. I mean, merchandise sales here alone, season ticket base. I mean, Jerry doesn't want the competition here. He knows that this is Cowboy country. I mean, look how many inroads the Oilers back then went there, and now the Texans try to make here. Didn't happen. You know, the Cowboys are still king here. So, yeah, it would be up to Jerry to try and vote in another franchise. I think eventually somewhere down the line it's going to happen.
I hope so.
I do. I really do. I'll never forget, we're at the meetings with Henry Cisneros. We're in Palm Desert, California, and he runs into Al Davis, and he's trying to convince, we got to get an NFL team in San Antonio. We're gonna do it. And he sat right there in front of me. He goes, "You need to build a dome first." And Henry goes, "Okay, we'll build it." And obviously went around and we built it, but again, never got an NFL team.
And Red tried.
Red tried greatly. I mean, obviously that's why he wound up owning the Minnesota Vikings and wound up almost going to the Super Bowl his rookie year as an owner. How about that? That had to be special for Red. But yet that's one reason why he was frustrated. He wanted to bring a team here and didn't get the opportunity. The closest we got, the New Orleans Saints.
That's it.
That's the closest we got. Had it not been for the fact the NFL wanted to keep them in New Orleans and gave them money to do it and gave money to fix up the Superdome again after Katrina, that's the closest we've ever gotten because Benson was sold on moving the team here. The guys liked San Antonio. They liked being here. They liked the fans. I mean, I don't think we sold out every game they played here, but we got pretty close, 65,000.
4 games they played here.
Right. And it was a great turnout for all of a sudden, like I say, emergency home NFL games all of a sudden thrown at our feet. Yeah. That was a special time, and that's as close as we got.
And they
almost got them.
They won the title. When? How many years later after that? It was like 2 years or 3 years after that.
Well, Sean Payton, I think, was coaching at the time they were here. Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was during Katrina. So
because of San Antonio.
Yeah.
That's
it.
it.
It had to be.
Yeah.
It's shortly
That's
after
some good
that.
history. That's a good San Antonio
years
history.
like that.
But that's as close as we ever got to getting an NFL team here. Right. Now, going forward, what will it take? Probably, more suites in the Alamo Dome, a renovated Alamo Dome. Who knows? But I think eventually, and I'm telling you now, San Antonio could support an NFL team. What people don't realize, NBA plays 41 regular season home games, not to mention the preseason games or any playoff games. Right. NFL now has a 17-game regular season, of which is 8 home games maybe, plus another couple.
Yep.
If you're lucky, 2 preseason games or whatever playoff. That's not that many games.
Right.
Yeah.
People don't realize, well, you can't afford that. Yeah, you can if you divide it up that way.
Yeah.
It's not that expensive.
It's not.
8 home games. At the most 10.
And you're going to wind up, believe me, people would pack it here. Look what we did. We packed it with San Antonio gunslingers.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
We can do it with gunslingers and we can do it with other venues that have come in here.
Again, if the beer is cold, they'll show up.
It's
They do.
one of my favorite times ever was the gunslinger era. That was so much fun. It was such a fly by your seat of your
Alamo
pants.
Stadium.
It was just so much. Rick Neuheisel, Butt Chode, all those guys.
Are
It
the
was
players
so much
being
fun.
paid or not? Is the game happening?
They called it the gumball rally. As soon as you got the check, is plowing as fast as you could to the Bank of Lavernia to cash it before all the money went belly up. It was awesome.
It was a fun time. I was actually a season ticket holder.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I give Sure Shot Billy Schott, who's was a former kicker for UT. He was the equipment manager for the Gunslingers back in the day.
Wow.
And he has some.
What year was this?
84.
Yeah, so 80. There were 2 years.
83, 84.
Yeah, the first year that we played, the season opener was in the Alamo Dome. I'm sorry, in Alamo Stadium. We played the Houston Gamblers, and their starting quarterback was Jim Kelly.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was on then ESPN, the Entertainment, Sports, and Programming Network.
Right.
And
When ESPN had sports?
when the ESPN has sports, yes. Hey, that's a whole other drama we need to get into some other day. But look at what they're doing with Major League Baseball. They're getting out of Major League Baseball.
Wow.
They spent so much money on the NBA and the NFL that they told Major League Baseball they don't want to spend $500 million. So they said, "Well, we'll give you $200." And Major League Baseball, no thanks.
Yeah, right.
So this is going to be their last year unless something changes with Major League Baseball. So ESPN is feeling the hurt of streaming services cutting the cord and all this other stuff. Yeah, so that's a whole other drama to get into.
Well, that's a lot going on. I mean, we talked about it, last week as well. As that, it used to be HBO Sports had they were the premier go-to place for big time boxing.
Absolutely.
And they got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's all going to streaming. Really,
Sure.
right?
Sure. DAZN obviously has a big handle on it
They have
now.
a lot.
Right.
So, I mean, streaming's kind of disrupting a lot, and maybe in a good way. I mean, change is good. You know?
You have more choices. As a viewer, you just have a lot more choices. Now, I always tell people, be careful, what you wish for, because people always say, oh, streaming's going to be better. Okay, but when you get to streaming, aren't they nickel and diming you there too? I mean, aren't you paying for this service and that service and this service and that service?
Yeah.
That adds up eventually.
does,
Your cable bill may be, $130 by the time you buy all these streaming.
Yeah.
Aren't you paying about the same?
About the same. That's what happens.
So that's why I tell people, yeah, you get more choices, but are you really saving money? I think you're still paying about the same. Right. I really do. And TVs, take it from me who just bought a 75-inch television set, TVs are much better now. So indulge.
They're much more durable now.
So as a guy, I'm not the only one. As a guy who grew up with you just being the sports guy, you know what I mean? And in my life anyway, when are you starting up your own podcast? I would love to hear you talk about
there
sports,
were some plans for it. I have a very dear friend, Cordell Patrick, who worked with me at KSAT for many years, and we had a grandiose plans. It was his idea. It wasn't my idea. I don't know how to do any of this. I have no idea.
Where is Cordell now?
Now, he lives in California, but he was involved in a terrible accident. He and his wife had gone out of town. They were driving in a rented mobile home, and they were on their way back, and I think she fell asleep at the wheel. He jumped up to catch the wheel. He was sitting back. She was driving, and she had just hit the median, and he went out the window of the mobile home into the oncoming traffic coming the opposite direction. Somehow, he was not hit and suffered a lot of injuries, survived, and went through some painful reconstructive surgeries. Unfortunately, I have not spoken to him recently, but it was his idea to do the podcast, and now I'm just waiting to see what his prognosis is going forward.
I think I read about
There's
this.
video of it. I mean, if you ever want to look it up, I mean, there's actual video of it happening. Wow. Yeah, somebody somehow was following around behind him, and it had a camera on their car. Oh, wow. Yeah, so I wish him the best if he's watching. He's a great guy. A great guy. But yeah, he approached me, and I went, podcast? And nobody cares what I want to say. No. But yeah, I
would like to hear raw, unfiltered, uncut. Greg Simmons.
I had to cut down my cussing level back in the day because when we went to all these automated services at work, I was always afraid the mics would be hot in the newsroom and I would be caught. So I had to, I guess, retrain myself to not cuss anymore.
I always say earlier about. So you're like, I think to the boys and to a lot of people, me as well as our Dan Cook.
Dan was a great guy.
Yes, great guy. But Dan was the guy who sport. You've been in sports the longest guy here in San Antonio, I believe, right?
Well, I think if you looked at overall, Dan did it 51 years at the paper, 44 years on Ken's.
Yeah.
And he obviously a legend.
Yes.
We got to be very good friends after his days at Ken's. Just a very nice guy. In fact, I don't know how many people know this story, but his daughter, Alice Ann, used to babysit when she was younger. She was about 15, and Gary DeLon and I were doing high school football games, and Dan didn't want her out and about on Friday nights without supervision, so because he was working and she was out, so she was ordered to sit in the press box with me and Gary every Friday night, and she hated it. She, sat there with a magazine going, "This is ridiculous. I can't believe it." Right. Here you are. Yeah. But yeah, we were her babysitters. But Dan was always very nice to me. He was the man. I could tell you some great stories about Dan.
I had. He followed us to New York when I fought in Madison Square Garden. He was always around.
Huge boxing fan.
Yeah, he'd come to the gym a lot.
Yep.
And he was just a great, great guy.
He loved being around boxing. That was his passion. Yeah. He loved going to Vegas for the fights. He loved being at ringside. That was just, it was too fun for him. It wasn't work. He liked being in the middle of that. That was, to him, that was the fun part of his job. Remember, he was doing in the days where video wasn't that big a deal. He was just, we call it ripping and reading, into the camera. I mean, maybe he had a couple of highlights, maybe, if that. But that was Dan. But remember, he worked at both places. He worked at Ken's and he worked at the paper.
The Express.
So that's.
Was the San Antonio Light or the Express?
Well, it was, back then it was the San Antonio Express and the San Antonio News. Yeah. At one time, we had 4 newspapers in the cities.
Wow.
4. We had the San Antonio Express, which is the morning edition, with the San Antonio Evening, the News, which is the evening edition. We had the San Antonio Light morning and afternoon edition. So we actually one time had 4 papers in this city.
Dang, there's a lot going on.
It
seems
Back in the day, and we had the big printing presses downtown. Now all the printing's done in Houston, not even done in San Antonio anymore. Right? The paper's actually printed in Houston. Yep. Yeah, times have changed.
Well, what I wanted to say was to us and to our family and to friends, and you're the Dan Cook.
No, thank you. That's a
Definitely.
big compliment to me. So I appreciate that.
That's why I want to hear more. I want to know what you think about the Spurs. I want to know what you're thinking about Stephon Castle. I want to know all these
And
things.
I always tell people, I say, you have to really couch what my opinion is because I'm also a fan. So
That's the best.
I mean, that may be clouding my judgment. When
That's
people
what I want to
say-
hear. I just want to
say,
hear
well,
that.
what do you think? Well, I'm also a fan, so you have to take that in consideration. When I
Spurs
say,
in
yes,
6.
we need to
Spurs
build a
in 6.
$1.5 billion stadium downtown. Well, he's speaking like a fan, not really. But obviously, we need to get the team back
Well,
downtown.
and at the same time, if we don't have this arena, and I'm a big Spurs fan as well, if we don't have this arena, what are the options for them to do to keep them, vibrant and keep them in town?
Most people start getting a little shaky because they're playing 2 games already in Austin.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that starts to like, okay, what happens?
They would build them an arena quick.
Austin's kind of a little different town, and I always say this because I grew up half in Austin.
Yeah.
Because my parents were from Austin, my grandparents were from Austin. They lived up there. So I kind of got half raised in Austin, half in San Antonio. Austin's a different
Yes,
town.
it is. Yeah.
It is different.
It's not anywhere like San Antonio. And it's a college town, too. There's a big difference between pro town and a college town. It's UT everything, obviously.
But there's a lot of money in Austin.
But
right?
there's a ton of money.
ton
Now,
of money.
is that money going to be there in 15? I don't know. They went through a little setback with COVID, obviously. A lot of offices shut down. But you're right. There's a ton of money up there, and that's where I think the Spurs are trying to tap into by playing a couple of their games there. Heck, at one time, the Spurs had heliports laid out on the parking lot, 5 of them, to try and get people to fly helicopters from Austin to watch the games and
They
then
were
fly
doing-
them back.
They were doing that. Right?
Yeah, because they had the money to do it. And now one of the big contributors, investors, is Dell, Michael Dell out of Austin. So that sends some little shockwaves of people.
I don't know. We went to the games in Austin
Right.
and maybe mid third quarter. And this is Phoenix. This is the Suns. We're
Durant.
watching Durant.
This
play.
is
what
Durant, who was
You
a Texas Longhorn.
You see Steph Castle, slam it down, and the most you get is
It's a college.
no one's out there. No one.
It felt
little
like
biased, but,
it felt like such an away game.
Interesting.
Yeah,
It was
did.
such an
Really?
away game.
Even though it had the Spurs floor?
It had the
was an
Spurs.
away
You
game.
know what?
Really?
I'll say this.
That's
We went to the first game. You went to the second game.
Yeah.
The first game.
So you
right?
went to the Phoenix game and
Phoenix
you went to
game.
the Detroit game?
They went to the Detroit
Okay.
game. The first game, to be honest with you, and I love the Spurs, right? It seemed like the Spurs, their team that they took to Austin, was trying so hard to bring every element that the Spurs have at Frostbank Center to
translate
Moody,
it into Austin.
to
right?
Moody.
Yeah.
Right.
It was great. I felt like the show itself, that what they were putting on,
Right.
was great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It's Frostbank.
Right.
The crowd
Didn't react to it.
sucked.
Well,
and that's just me.
And I
That's
got to tell you, it's Austin is a different crowd especially when it comes to basketball. The weirdest thing I remember doing is I did a game at the old Frank Irwin Center, right? And the thing that struck me first is that they darkened the lights in the crowd. It blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like that. I was doing the game. I mean, we're down on the court and the lights are bright. Obviously, they're on the court. And I'm looking around and go, why is it so dark in here? And then I notice, well, there are no lights on the crowd. Well, that's weird. Why is it? But that's the way they liked it. That's what they wanted. They wanted a kind of a theater setting for basketball, which blew my mind. And that's the difference you have between Austin and San Antonio crowds. I don't know. I don't think it's the same way they do it with the Austin Spurs. I seem to see some of the broadcasts of Austin Spurs, and it seems to be the crowd's lit up and looks nice.
The difference that maybe happens is that it's still someone coming in. It's like visitors.
I think there are more. I think
you would think, but you would think if they only had 2 games in Austin,
Yeah, but they're not,
that they
it's
would
not
go
San
all
Antonio.
out.
It's that
You know what I
team,
mean?
though.
the Austin crowd. I think there are more curious about the software they're using on the screens rather than the actual team itself.
Now let me see how I can do this.
Yeah, right. Okay, I see. Let me develop that at home.
That it is interesting. It's just a different atmosphere. Austin was different. I remember growing up in Austin halfway. They had the artificial moonlight towers, which to me was kind of the ooh and ah event where my brother and I would sneak up because they had little elevators in them and we'd see how far we could get to the top and back down. It's stupid, but that's how we played. And it was just a different, it was a very college type atmosphere, very laid back.
And with that being said,
extremely laid back.
With that being said, being a college town, I always feel like it changes every 4 years. You have a different set of college people.
Yeah, and what's interesting, it's not that way at the football game. It's completely opposite. They're nuts at the football game.
Yeah.
It's not the same type of cheering. It's not. I mean, they're going berserk. It's what you expect you would see at a football game. And now 102,000 plus fans going bonkers.
Yeah.
So it's a different atmosphere at the football game altogether than it is at the basketball. Basketball, like I said, it's like going to a theater and watching a game on stage. That's basically the way I can describe it.
Yep.
We're going to have to get you back, man.
We'd love to come back.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get
This beats working any day.
This is just, I mean, just your stories.
People that are around me get tired of me hearing me tell stories, so I'm sure they'd love to have me back here so I can get away from them.
Oh, we're loving it.
You can cut your chops here, in preparation.
I got to tell one story about Spurs. People always you laugh about coverage and live television. Live television is kind of, to me, the fun part about doing anything, because you never know what's going to happen ever. You never know. I mean, you could have it planned out, know exactly what you're going to say. You have it on script. Tim Duncan used to get a big kick out of knocking my scripts out of my hand when he came out of the locker room. He just thought that was the funniest thing, and he would wait. The thing about him, he got savvy. He would wait till he knew I was on camera, and then he'd just walk by and right as he was about ready to read. And Frank Burkowski would roll my pants legs up to my knees, knowing full well I couldn't do anything because I had scripts in one hand, a microphone in the other, and there's no way I could get down and roll them down, pounding my feet on the ground to get them to roll down. Of course, people were laughing. But we were at Cowboys camp, and we decided we're going to go down and interview the kids that are playing for the LA Rams. Rams are back. It's a big deal. So it's Malcolm Brown, Ramon Richards from Brackenridge, Josh Reynolds from Jay. They're all members of the Rams team. And my producer at the time, Mike Klein, said, let's go down on the day off, Monday off, let's go down and do their camp. Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. So set up with the Rams. They were very nice to us. We got down there. Could not be nicer. Got to interview all the kids. Sean McVay, their coach, stayed around for us, did an interview with us about the guys, and now we have to head back to Cowboys camp. So we did our 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock shows there in the Rams camp. That was 3 and 4 o'clock, San Antonio time. Now we got to head back, right? So we thought we had time to make it back to Oxnard, but traffic, it's 5 o'clock on the West Coast, and we're trying to fight our way back. Well, we're not going to make it. So we got to stop somewhere, and do the show. So I said, well, Santa Monica Pier, it's a staple out there. You can see the Ferris wheel behind us. Wow. It's all lit up. It's perfect. Let's do it there. Yeah, bad idea. So we get out there, and Billy Caldera is a photographer. He's setting up the live shot. Mike Klein is in the car. We parked the car in a parking lot a little ways away, and he's editing the show. We're trying to make deadline, and that's back when we had an hour newscast from 10 to 11, right? Wow. And we had 2 hits, one at 10:20, one at 10:50, right? So we're doing the 10:20 hit. Now we're getting set up, and we're trying to get the shot to where you can see the Ferris wheel behind us, this typical Santa Monica Pier. And there's a little girl who walks up, and she's obviously been toking, will be the word, right? So she's a little stoner.
She's in the devil's lettuce.
Yeah, she's a little stoned, but she's cool.
Yeah.
She said, "Hey, what are y'all doing? What are y'all up to? Oh, we're just out here. We're covering the Cowboys, and we're trying to make it back to our training camp in Oxnard, but we had to stop here. Oh, do you mind if I watch? No, fine. Just stand there and watch. Everything's fine." Well, as luck would have it, or non-luck would have it, a larger person showed up later, another young lady, and she was a little bit more outgoing, we'll just say. She had been probably using something else that's a little bit stronger than what the other young lady was using or had used.
It is California.
And remind you, we're in the middle of California, and there are a few homeless people also that also live on the beach as well. Anyway, long story short, this lady wants to be on television. And the one thing about it getting dark, once you turn the light on, everybody knows you're on, right? So I'm trying to convince them, because I don't want them any part of the live shot for obvious reasons. I'm trying to convince the one young lady in particular who's determined that we're just shooting a commercial, and she wanted to be in it. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to be back here tomorrow at 2. So if you're right here tomorrow at 2, you can be in the commercial, thinking this would be the easy way.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I'll be
great.
back tomorrow, right? And off she would go, nah, not having any of that. So we do the tease, and I could just tell there's something about her, this is not going to work out well. There's something, she was determined to be on television. It was going to happen. So sure enough, we do the tease. She doesn't really make a move, but I can just tell she's kind of inching. And I looked at Billy, and I went, I don't know what's going to happen. This is not good. So we start the show, and as soon as we start, she goes off. She starts screaming, I want to be on television. But she starts yelling something else I can't repeat. But it was, Billy remembers it. I don't remember the exact line. But basically, you're going to put me on TV or else. And whatever she was yelling, it was terrible. It shouldn't have been on television. But she kept yelling and screaming. So I was trying to overtalk her, right? But you could see her hand come in the shot. So Billy runs around from behind the camera and literally starts throwing his body between her and me to try and keep her from coming
Boxing
at
her
me.
out. Boxing her out.
Right, and exactly, boxing her out without hands, trying to be the diligent guy. And now we're in video. And we call a VO bite, luckily. So I'm not on camera until the very end. Well, as we hit the last bite, she's now on me. I can't get her off of me. She's swinging like she's crazy, which could have been.
Yeah.
And all I can remember saying is when we get in the last soundbite, I go like, do not come back to me, pitch to the anchors. Do not come back to me, pitch to the anchors. I think it's over, right? So sure enough, they don't come back to me. They pitch to the anchors. I went, thank you, Lord. She's not done. She's determined she's going to be on television. She's kicked in full throttle. So Stoner Girl is still with us. So she's trying to calm her down, right? So we're picking up the stuff. We still have another hit. There's no way we can stay at this location because of her.
Yeah.
We got to go. So I tell Billy, just start running to the car. So we start running thinking, well, she'll give up, right? No. Matches us step for step. Runs all the way back to the car. We get to the car, and Mike Klein is in there going like, what's wrong with you people? Because we're throwing stuff in the car, going, let's get out of here, let's get out of here. She throws herself in the back of the car. We cannot back out.
Wow.
Can't get out of the car. Can't get out of the parking lot, right? So now Stoner Girl's trying to help talk her down and talk her over to the side so we can sneak out the car and the whole bit. Finally get the car out, right? Finally, and the little Stoner Girl was so concerned, she left me her phone number. If anything happens, if she complains or something, here's my number. I'll testify for you. Like, oh great, I need a court case out of all this. This would be awesome. So we get in the car. We start driving. We think we're going to make it to. He goes, where are we going? I said, I don't care. Just get away from her. Yeah. So we're driving, and all of a sudden the traffic hits. We can't get out of the Santa Monica Pier. We're stuck in traffic. Oh, okay. And I go, look it's 9:45. We got to hit in 5 minutes. Or 9:45. We got to hit in 5 minutes. What do we do? Billy, jump out of the car. I'll just grab everything and let's start running. So we just start running. What are we looking for? We're looking for anything with a background where she can't get behind me. Yeah. He goes, what? So she can't get behind me. I need a way to screen her off from getting behind me. So we find this large ditch, and it's got a big, huge fence around it. I go, that's it. That's what we'll do. It was set up right next to the ditch. So we set up the ditch. I lean up against the back. I said, do you see her? So we're all paranoid doing the whole show. We got to do 2.5 minutes, and we're looking around. He goes, what are we looking for? We're looking for her. I just feel like she's going to come out of nowhere in a minute just throwing stuff, and we're all going down in flames.
That's funny. God.
Thank gosh she never showed up. We got back in the car, got back to camp, and going, well, we're never doing a live shot from the Santa Monica Pier ever again. And I tell my friend, who's an anchor lady out there, I could tell her the story. He goes, oh yeah, we don't go there unless we have police protection.
Wow.
Well, that would have been nice to know before.
I need 2 of what that girl is doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How can I buy this?
That's one of the many fun things that happen.
I would assume there's so many things that happen.
Gosh, yeah.
Because everybody wants to be on TV.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about it is when you turn the light on, it's like the moth to the flame. I mean, they see it. A lot of times you just have to tell them, "Oh, we're not live," and then a lot of times they'll just go, "Okay," and they'll walk away. But there was a phrase that was being yelled at back in those days. It was very popular. That was not good. So you had to have one hand on the mic and one hand on the cord, so you could pull it free. So if you saw somebody coming, you could get out in time before they yelled it. Yeah,
I bet you just being live so many times, you've had so many people wanting to say things or do things.
Absolutely.
You have to redo it. Or
yeah, I had a golfer one time. His wife got mad at me. We were at the Texas Open back when it was held at La Cantera, and I was on this hill. I think it overlooked 15 or something. But we're way on this hill. I mean, the hole is way away, right? And I guess she got mad because she could either hear my voice. I don't think she heard mine. There was another guy out there doing a live shot for the Golf Channel or whoever. He was a little loud. I think she thought I was him, and somehow or another it affected her husband's putt. You know, he got mad, so she got mad. So she ran up all the way to the hill and started coming at me while we're on the air. I go, "Who is this crazy lady? Why is she coming after me?" I remember her yelling, but I couldn't understand what she was yelling about because we were on the air. And you're trying to focus and, be happy. But she was,
that's funny.
You're going to get you off the air one way or the other. Yeah, that was the fun times.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, you're always welcome here to give us your thought on anything happening
Absolutely.
in sports. You know what I mean? I'm looking forward to whatever you start. You know what I mean? Honestly, I just wanted to tune in and get your opinions on all these things that are happening. You know what I mean?
I will say I'm lazy by nature, and the only reason I was ever in broadcasting is because they had deadlines, and I knew I had to have something done by 5 or didn't get on the air. So that actually helped me out in my laziness because somebody said, "You have to do it now, and this is the time you have to do it." Oh, okay, I'll get it done by then. Now I don't have that much of a deadline anymore.
How about that thing we can meet you at?
So I think I'm still lazy at heart, so I have a hard time.
We'll meet you on the golf course.
That's it. Okay, we'll do that.
We'll bring a camera over there.
We should do an episode on the golf course. I think we were talking to Sean Elliott about that, doing something on the golf course. We should definitely.
Sean said, by the way, don't let him sandbag you. He's a good golfer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't let him I haven't played in a while. Oh, shut up.
I've seen him on the driving range before.
Oh no,
he knows what he's doing.
Really good. Yeah. So don't let him sandbag you. No.
For sure. Greg, thank you so much for
Thanks for having
us,
me,
man.
Thanks for having me as always.
Greg Simmons for mayor.
I feel old. I feel old being around the kids, James.
No, not at all. Thank you so much, man. Guys, please like, comment, subscribe if you like this content. Please tune in for more content. Next episode, the Leija Lounge coming at you.